Well, good morning. Welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. So glad to have you with us. This video is of a project that I made that was a total experiment. And I had one colossal fail and one success. And of course I'm showing you the success, but I show you the fail too in the video. I was craving hash browns and just didn't think I could handle that much potato on my carbs today. So this was my compromise. This is a hash brown patty that has less than half the carbs of a regular hash brown patty. Before we start cooking, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe and click the little bell icon so you get a notice when I post new videos. Now let's get cooking. So of course, anytime you want to cut the carbs in your potato dish, you're going to start with some cauliflower. And I bought frozen riced cauliflower. You could cook it yourself. And I have one potato. I weighed this potato. It started out at 8 ounces. I've got salt, pepper, garlic powder, cumin, and I've got 3 little green onions here, but you can use about 1/4 of a medium-sized onion, chopped very finely or grated. Now, I want to try to make these without the egg and the binder, because to me that's a patty, and you can make anything into a patty with egg and a binder. So I'm not going to show you that right now. I'll show it to you later. So I've cooked this frozen cauliflower half the time that it says on the package, because I want them thawed out, but I don't want them cooked. So this called for 6 minutes. I cooked them for 3, and they're thawed out. I need to dry them, so I've put them on paper towel, and I'm just going to let them sit in this paper towel for a few minutes while I get other things ready. I'll just move that out of the way. And this baked potato was baked earlier today, and I've let it cool. And I'm going to peel it and rice it. You can cut it with a knife to peel it, or a potato peeler, but I'm just going to peel this skin off, and I'm going to leave a little bit of that brown there because I like to get that color in there. And this is how I make my hash browns, by the way. I don't use raw potatoes. I bake them first, or I boil them whole and let them cool off. And then the rest of it is the same except for the cauliflower. And you can use a potato masher for this. I have a ricer. You might have a different kind of ricer, or you could just break it up well with a fork. But my goal here is to leave some potato chunks. I don't want creamed potatoes as a base of this. That's a potato patty. I'm trying to make something that resembles hash browns, but has fewer carbs. And this whole thing, by the way, ends up with each patty having just under 4 grams of carbs. And that's for 1/3 cup size patties. So I've got that riced. Then we're going to add some spices. And when I'm adding these spices, hold in mind, this is a teaspoonful of salt, that I'm adding the spices for 4 cups total. This is some freshly ground black pepper, because I've got 3 cups of the cauliflower. And so I'm adding enough spices, I hope, for the whole thing. I'll taste it later before I cook it, and I can add some more salt if I need to. But the 1 teaspoonful of salt should be enough for the whole 3, total of 4 cups. This is 1 teaspoonful of garlic powder, and you can use more or less, just depends on how you like it. And then I'm going to add something that you don't usually see in potato patties or hash browns. I'm going to add some cumin, a 1/2 teaspoonful of cumin. And I'll tell you my thought on that. The reason I'm adding the cumin is because it adds a kind of a savory flavor and kind of deepens the flavor of the things you add it to. Then I'm going to finely chop these little green onions. Back to the cumin. I eat a lot of cauliflower because I eat about 50 grams of carbs a day. That's what my body says it can tolerate. Any more than that and my glucose levels get high. So I eat about 50 grams of carbs a day, which is not a keto way of eating, but that's pretty low carb. So I end up eating a lot of cauliflower because I rarely eat a potato. A cup of cooked potato has 23 net grams of carbs. I get tired of cauliflower. After a while, to me, it's just really bland. So I add lots of different things to it to bring that flavor out. And so in this case, I'm using 1 part potato and 3 parts cauliflower, some onion, and the cumin. And all of those things are designed to add some flavor to this cauliflower so that I don't get sick of it. I did eat a potato last week. I ate a covered baked potato, and it was good. It was 23 grams of carbs. That was half of my day's allotment in one vegetable. So I'm adding this cauliflower in and just stirring it as I go. Going to distribute those spices. And I want to remind you that I told you I had a fail, and I'll explain it as I go. I wanted to try to make these without an egg and a binder. I wanted a more crunchy, more potato-y kind of results. This turned out really great. I had to add the binder, and I used 3 tablespoons full of CarbQuick as the binder and a beaten egg. And I'll show you why, because I'm going to try one of these without any egg and binder. It looks to me like it might stick together. And my guess is if I put a blender in here and mashed it all up fine, it would stick together. But I don't want that. That's going to defeat the purpose. I want to have some little potato chunks in there. So I'm going to try one without the binder. I'm going to meet you at the stove and show you how that turned out. I have about 1/4 inch of oil in my field skillet. It's heated. I've dropped in a little piece just to make sure that it's at the right temperature. You see how that popped right up and started sizzling. And that tells me it's hot enough. And I'm going to fish this little piece out. And as you watch this process, this is my failure process. You're probably going to laugh at me fishing out that one little piece. But we're going to give this a shot. And I'm taking out a 1/2 cup. I measured it in this little scoop. This is a 1/2 cup scoop. And I'm going to form this in a patty with my hands and then put it in the oil. And we're going to watch this process and see how this fries up. So I ease it down in there. Anytime I'm adding something to hot oil, I put it on either a spoon or a fork or a spatula and ease it into the hot oil because I don't want it to splash on me. But I'm handling this super carefully, and I'm following all the rules of frying. And the rules of frying are 2. Put it in hot oil and leave it alone until it browns. Always. Anything you're frying, that's what you do. So it's been about 1.5 minutes, and it's brown on the bottom. You can tell because it doesn't stick. And I'm going to flip it. Now, you can see I have some escapees there. But that's not too many, and I am committed to this experiment. So it's brown on both sides now. Let me see what happens. And I'm going to flip it again, and oh my, the dam burst. This is a fail. Came all apart. Let me clean this up. You know, I had to do it. I would have been wondering forever if it would work if I hadn't tried it. And now I know and you know, and you don't have to try it. So I put a tablespoonful of CarbQuick in there, and I'm going to beat this egg. And I've just mentioned CarbQuick very quickly. In case you don't know what it is a low-carb baking mix that I use pretty often. I will put a link in the info section so that you can see what it's all about. If you haven't watched my videos before, I've made biscuits and pancakes, and I made pasta with it, and it turned out really well. You can make a biscuit that has 2 grams of carbs, and it's a pretty good biscuit. It's not like a regular biscuit, but it's pretty darn good. So I've mixed this all in, the egg and the 1 tablespoonful of CarbQuick, and I realized the 1 tablespoon is not enough. Not nearly enough, so I'm going to add another 1/4 cup, which is 2 tablespoons full. I've got my oil cleaned up over there, and I added just a little bit to cool it all down. Turned my heat back on so the oil's getting hot. And let me get all that in. So all you want to do here is just to stir this up and make sure the CarbQuick is all incorporated into the mix. And then we're going to start the process of frying over. I'll be right back. So you can see there I've tested my oil again. It's good and hot. I formed these patties. I'm making them 1/3 of a cup. So, I started out with 4 cups altogether of product, and I'm doing a 1/3 cup, so that means this recipe is going to make 12 patties. I'm going to cook a couple tonight. I'm going to cook 4 tonight. And then I'm going to put the rest of it in the fridge and make hash browns for breakfast. So next time also, I'm going to go ahead and make the patties ahead of time, because that one's cooking quite a while before I put in the second one. And I'm going to put 4 in this pan. I wouldn't crowd them. And I'll refer again to the rules of frying. Put them in the pan, leave them alone until they form a crust before you turn them. And after, it was a little bit more than a minute and a half, you nudge them and you see that they've let go. They're not sticking. And if you have your cast iron seasoned properly, they won't stick. Nothing will stick. And once you've let them brown for that period of time and you've checked them, we're going to flip them. I always use 2 utensils for this. Again, I don't want it to splash. And you'll see this one's not as brown because I was so slow putting them in the pan. You really need to make the patties ahead of time and put them all in pretty quickly. I'm going to let it cook just a little bit more before I flip the others. When you're using cast iron, if they're not cooking evenly, move your pan on the burner just a little bit to direct the heat. Cast iron does conduct heat pretty well, not as great as people say. You control part of that by moving your pan around. And we're ready for the last turn. That was a minute and a half on one side, 2 minutes on the other. I'm going to flip it again. They look about right. Well, I'm going to let that one cook just another minute on that side. Yep. Nope. I'm going to let that one cook a little more on that side too. So I'm going to take these up and then I'll show you our results. So this is not my dinner. I actually have a steak cooking, but I'm going to show you this one. And, I have to call it a success just by how pretty it is. This is very pretty. And I'm going to taste it. And I have to tell you, the first impression I got, this was an experiment, was that it wasn't as crunchy as I wanted. It has a little crunch, but not as crunchy as I wanted. And I may cook them a little bit more next time. But, that's yummy. And I'm glad I added the cumin. You can taste it in there just a little bit. And it sort of overpowers the cauliflower. Now, if you really, really love that cauliflower flavor, feel free to leave the cumin out. But this is nice. This is tasty. A little bit of crunch, not a lot of crunch. And let me show you the inside, because one of my goals was to have chunks of potato and cauliflower and not a creamy mess in there. And that's what I've got. This is quite tasty. This was a successful experiment. I hope you try it too, and I hope you love it. And I hope to see you again tomorrow.